Well, welcome back to the Slice for our first show of 2024. This is the 2024 season preview. We're going to do some predictions on who's going to win the majors of 2024. We're going to look back at my predictions from 2023 and see if I got any right. And we're also going to talk about the big storylines with Rafa Nadal coming back and Djokovic's wrist injury potentially heading into the Australian Open. So there's going to be a lot to cover in this show because that's what a new season is about. And let's get into it. Welcome to the Slice. All right. Welcome back, people. It's been good to be back and get refreshed with tennis after taking a break. You know, the tennis season is long for players, and after the US Open, everyone starts to complain about the different balls and their wrists and everything, and so they need time off. They don't have a lot of time off, but it's the same for tennis broadcasters and media personnel like myself. So I enjoyed the break. I took time off to relax. I actually played a tennis match yesterday for the first time in a few months, and I'm incredibly sore today, and that's incredibly sad because I used to not be so sore after playing a match after taking a break off. But alas, I bet you these pros that we are watching are not going to be as sore because I bet you that they're in physical shape. And they've been keeping tuned up over the break. So yeah, welcome back to the show. The Slice is presented by AG1. Link below to try out AG1 with a special promo. And thanks for subscribing. If you have not already, do yourself a favor. Start 2024 off in a good way, as Dominic Thiem would say, and smash the subscribe button. Okay, so 24 season preview. Let's just take a look right now at what's happening, and then we're going to get into my 2023 predictions. Did they come true? How did I do? I made 5. How did I do? And then I'm going to make, at the end of the video, 4 predictions for who on the ATP side is going to win the majors of 2024. This isn't really a 2024 ATP season preview to start things off. So right now, we've got 2 ATP 250s going on and the United Cup. We've got the tournament. You got a tournament in Brisbane and a tournament in Hong Kong and the United Cup in Perth or Sydney. The big news, I think, right now in this first week is we already alluded to it. Rafael Nadal is back, looking like he never left, really. I mean, the ability for this guy to just be injured, take such a long time off, and come back is pretty crazy. He looks literally, to me, eyeballs the exact same. I guess it's only a year. I maybe look the exact same to you after a year, but it's amazing. He's come out. He beat Dominic Thiem in his first round. Actually, let's put it up here. He beat Dominic Thiem in his first round match, as you can see here. And he beat Jason Kubler 6-1, 6-2 in the second round. So 2 wins, 0 losses for Rafael Nadal to start the season. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So he'll play Jordan Thompson next, and then he could play Dimitrov next, and then he could play Rune in the final, which Dimitrov and Rune would really be maybe a level tester for Rafa, see where he's really at. And Djokovic loses in the United Cup to Alex de Minaur, which was a bit of a grudge match. If you remember, there was before last year's Australian Open, I believe, Alex de Minaur talked in the media about how he didn't maybe necessarily agree with all Djokovic's choices from the year before. And then once they met in the Australian Open, Djokovic laid a pretty good beatdown on him, seeming like he took some revenge on there. There wasn't the warmest of handshakes afterwards. And I think there were some things said in the media. Anyways, Alex de Minaur turns the tables this time around with a Djokovic who was not looking his best, made, I think, over 30 unforced errors, and was getting his wrist worked on during the match, as he was in his previous match. Yeah, Alex de Minaur took some liberties there to talk about how he felt like he was proving the haters wrong. Also a salty handshake at the end of that match. But the real concern for Djokovic fans are, what is this wrist injury? To me, when Djokovic in this picture here, and he was arguing with the trainer about not being able to take a medical timeout, They're rubbing his forearm, they're rubbing his wrist, and to me that, I mean, I guess what else are you going to do? But if that signals a muscle soreness type of injury, that's definitely obviously better than having something like Dominic Thiem had, where your tendon sheath, medical term, not a doctor, gets ruptured or injured. Like, that's obviously a much more serious thing. So Djokovic says he's going to be fine. He believes he'll be fine and he's still building towards the Australian Open. How many years have we heard this? But I think that, we got to take that at face value, I guess. So we'll wait and see how he looks coming into the Australian Open. But that is a storyline for sure right off the bat. Djokovic, potential wrist injury, going out, losing to Alex de Minaur in the United Cup, and Rafael Nadal back in action, looking like a stallion, which is pretty amazing. So 2024. At the end of 2023, the ATP was looking like we had Djokovic as the clear number one. We had Alcaraz as number two. And then technically in the standings, Daniil Medvedev number three. But really, it felt like Jannik Sinner stepped up into that top echelon with Djokovic, really, and with Alcaraz and with Medvedev, to be fair. So it really seemed like a top four in the men's game kind of separated themselves from the rest of the tour. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to play out at the Australian Open on a surface that all four of these guys can play extremely well on. And we're going to have to see, obviously, how Rafael Nadal can play, because last time he won this in 2022. It's amazing. That was amazing. Coming back against Daniil Medvedev. And we will see how that goes. But at the beginning of 2023, I made 5 predictions, and I'm going to go through them now because they're pretty interesting to look back on. My prediction there, Carlos Alcaraz, to rewind you, Carlos Alcaraz was number 1 in the world at that time. Djokovic had not played 2 of the majors in 2022, so he didn't get any points from those. He didn't play a lot of the Masters either. So Alcaraz was number 1. He had just won the U.S. Open, his first major. Yeah, that's kind of on the ATP side, this where it was at. So I did predict that Carlos would lose the number 1 seeding, I thought, in March, and I believe he did it a little bit before that. Djokovic took him over. But he would win another major. So that's like 2 opportunities to be wrong there, 1 opportunity to be totally right. And I was right. So that felt good. He did lose the number 1 ranking, but he did win his first major, obviously, at Wimbledon, defeating Novak Djokovic in the final. So that was one for one. My next prediction was Nadal does not win the French Open. Now, Nadal was not as injured at this point. Obviously, after the Australian Open, before the clay swing, he had to pull out of the French Open. He did not play. But yeah, that was my prediction. It was that he wouldn't win the French Open for whatever reason. I thought that was going to be the case. Obviously, wasn't trying to hex him into any type of injury, but that's 2 for 2 as far as predictions. Now this is where our sign has fallen off. I'm getting too animated here. Now this is where things go downhill for me. My next prediction, the third one, was Djokovic to play all 4 majors and win 2. So he did play all 4, but he won 3. So I wasn't quite right in that prediction, but I thought it was pretty good. He played all 4. You never know. The world was, it's seemingly more normal now, but it was a pretty crazy place there for a while. So he played all 4. He won 3. And I thought he would only win 2. So Djokovic fans will call me a hater because of that. So that's 2 correct for 3 predictions. 4th prediction was Swiatek would win 2 majors. She only ended up winning 1. We had the real rise of, obviously, Sabalenka and Rybakina as the top 3 in women's game. And then by the U.S. Open, Coco Gauff came in there and absolutely said, I'm here. We're clear. I'm here to stay. Swiatek does not win 2 Grand Slams. She only wins 1. She lets me down. So it's 2 correct, 2 wrong. And then the kicker for me to look like I don't know what I'm talking about was I picked either one of Felix Auger-Aliassime, came off that amazing end of 2022, one of Zverev, who was coming back, and I felt like he would have a good year, which he ended up did having, or Tsitsipas, who I've always kept out belief in. but it's starting to fade a lot more now. One of those three guys would win a major in 2023, and that obviously did not happen. Really didn't even come close. Like, I guess the closest was Tsitsipas in the final of Australia. So I was looking at it at the beginning, but that match didn't seem that close. So 2 for 5 as far as predictions for 2023. So let's try and do better for 2024. Here are my predictions for the major champions on the ATP side for 2024. Australia, despite the wrist injury woes, despite him losing to de Minaur, I'm taking Novak Djokovic to win the 2024 Australian Open. I'm taking Rafael Nadal, shocker, to win the French Open in 2024. If he's healthy, if he's able to play, I'm almost always going to predict Rafael Nadal to win the French Open. Why wouldn't you? It just seems insane to not do that. He is the king of Roland Garros. Djokovic to win AO, Nadal to win RG, and Alcaraz to defend his title at Wimbledon, winning on grass again. I love the way that the kid played on Wimbledon, and what can you say to me now to think that he wouldn't have a great chance to defend his title at Wimbledon? Who in the world is a certified much better player on grass than he is? Well, Djokovic has won a lot more on grass, but Alcaraz just beat him last year in the final of Wimbledon. So he can do it again. My prediction is that he will. And then for the U.S. Open, I mean, it's a bit of a crapshoot. We're so far away. So much is going to happen. But I'm taking Jannik Sinner to win his first major in 2024 and for it to be at the U.S. Open. That's a court that he can play on. That's a court that he can hit through as good as anyone else on tour. And I think he's going to have a great 2024. I hope he doesn't have the sophomore slump where we've seen with a few other players. Felix Auger-Aliassime have not a great year after an amazing kind of breakout season. So those are my predictions for the 4 majors. Djokovic on Australia, Nadal in Paris, Alcaraz in London, and Sinner at the U.S. Open under the bright lights. What do you think about those predictions? Are they legit? I think they're pretty, to me, that all those are just logical. Djokovic could win Wimbledon. He could obviously win all 4. You never know. Maybe then Goran Ivanisevic would become coach of the year, as Djokovic saltily pointed out. But I think those are pretty good predictions. We got Djokovic at the AO, as I said, Nadal at the French Open, Carlos Alcaraz at Wimbledon, and Jannik Sinner at the U.S. Open. What do you think? That's a quick preview of the season. I guess final notes on the start of the season here. Like I said, the top 4 players on the ATP Tour, how are they going to fare in these first 2 months? We've got the Australian swing, obviously with the Australian Open starting here in like a week and a half. And then we've got Indian Wells in Miami. We've got Djokovic, we've got Alcaraz, we've got Sinner and Medvedev, and then we've got Nadal coming into the mix again. You can't put Nadal in the top 4 yet because we really don't know what his level is going to be at the Australian Open. This tournament he's at in Brisbane is definitely, once he plays Dimitrov and maybe Rune in the final, that'll show something, but that's still 2 out of 3 sets. The 5-set format at the major, that is really going to show where his level's at. The good thing about the majors for Rafa fans is that it's just like you can always get, if you don't trip on the way into the tournament, like in the first round, these players with the way that the draw and the seeds and the draws are set up now, you can really play your way into tournaments usually, unless you have some type of injury that just gets worse with every match. So if Nadal can get through the first match and not play someone who's a beast and, is going to run him around the court too much, I think he can play his way into play the rest off, play his way into form, and then we'll just see if his body holds up. That's all you can really do at this point in his career. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to me to see how Sinner and Alcaraz challenge Djokovic, and how Medvedev plays in there, keeping his level, finding different ways to compete. And that's really going to be the storyline at the beginning of the year for me. So that's the slice on the start of the 2024 ATP calendar. It's lit. I'm excited to be here. I can't wait for the Australian Open to get going. I'm going to treasure my sleep now, because we're not going to be getting it once the tournament rolls around. So anyways, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the show. Here's to another great year. I appreciate you guys, the fans, being here, having the community here to talk about tennis. We've got some exciting things coming up as we did last year. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, Follow me on Twitter or X here at the Slice Steven, and we will see you when the ball is in play.